Hey guys, Heath Jones here with Treasure Mountain Metal Detectors. Got a lot of questions about my Civil War program that I use with the XP Deus. Of course, I use the 11-inch coil. I'm going to run through these settings. These settings are more advanced settings. These are not, your beginner settings really. I'm not going to go through how to put these in. If you're putting these settings in, you probably have at least some basic knowledge of the machine and hopefully of what the settings actually do. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Anyway, this is not a one-size-fits-all. Don't think that you're going to put this in and go out and just start finding super deep relics, which you could. But this is site dependent. When you get out there, you're going to need to kind of figure out how much trash is in the ground, your mineralization, and that sort of thing, and kind of tweak this program a little bit for your site. And I even mine from site to site, and even the same site, depending on how much rain and that sort of thing there is out there in the mineralization. I change this every time I go, just about. But here we go. We'll run through it really quick. And basically, we're going to start out at disk 2.5. Now, again, this program is super chatty. If you can stand that, I can. You're going to get more depth. The lower that you can reduce that disk and listen, if you can stand to listen to everything, the more depth you're going to get. 2.5 seems to be, the 2.5 to 3.0 seems to be my sweet spot. It knocks out the little small nails and still get some depth in there. All right, next you're going to go to expert and disc. I hunt in 5-tone. That's my preference. I'll show you why. Going into expert, and if you're looking really close, the first tone's going to be at 150, 370, 665, 800, and the fifth tone's going to be at 206. Excuse me, that's typically your iron range, but I'm going to explain to you why I do that in just a few minutes. Then you're going to go on over to your breakpoints. That 2.5, that's going to be wherever your disc is set. So if you have yours set at 3.5, that's what that first will be, and it'll be 150. All right, your next, I've got it set at 48. So everything 49 and up is going to be in the next tone. But in that range, in the 370 range, you're going to have everything from 12.5 and up right there. I'm sorry, 2.5 and up right there. That's going to be your larger iron, your full, that sort of thing. The reason I do that, typically in this stuff, unless it's in like the 40s or so, I don't dig it, because I think that cannonball will show up like a 35 or 40, a 12-pound cannonball. So, but there again, you got to kind of judge this by size. And this is set up on the 12 kilohertz scale. This is going to vary if you have a different frequency. Just know that going in. But I'll explain the 12 kilohertz in just a few minutes as well. Anyway, your second tone is going to be broke at 48. And then 79. And basically, that's going to be your bullet range right there in the 665 tone range. And then the next one's going to be 97. So everything, 79 to 97 is going to be your high tone in the 800. That's going to be your pennies. That's going to be your, your coin range. Also, I've seen bullets fall into that range if they're really deep, over, say, 6 or 8 inches in mineralized ground. For some reason, from my experience, they can actually go up in VDI numbers, so it'll change the tone on them. Anyway, your next tone, of course, like I say, is 97. So anything 98, 99 is going to be in the 200 range. That's going to be your flat iron. That's pretty much all you're going to find in that range anyway. Is going to be iron, so make it sound like iron. And then you go exit back out of that. And then sensitivity, I've got mine set at 93. Again, that's really clean. Sometimes you'll get some really small stuff with that. I kind of turn that down sometimes. Sometimes I turn it up. But if you're getting a lot of trash, even go down, 88. whatever. The default value is 90 on that. So, all right, frequency, I use 11.8. The default's 11.7. I shifted up. If I'm using my TRX, if I have it on 11.7, I get nasty feedback. But if you'll shift it up in the expert mode to 11.8, it'll stop that. Same for the others. If you've got a pinpointer that's kind of making it go crazy, just do a shift on that, and that'll fix that. And then iron volume, I've got it set at 1. Reactivity, I typically have it set at 1 with a silencer of -1. I changed that the other day. It was for the site that I was at. But that's how I normally have it set. Reactivity 1, silencer -1. Something to note on that. As you go down in the silencer, in the reactivity, you're going to get more depth. Now you are subject to masking. That's the power of the Deus, is that reactivity. But you're sacrificing the reactivity for more depth. I typically don't hunt in 0. I use 0 usually to check a target. If I'm getting just a little squeak at reactivity 1 and silencer at -1, I will go down then to 0 and then reactivity 0, silencer at -1. And a lot of times then that target will then come in and it'll be a very repeatable, steady tone if it's just right on the edge of detection. But I usually don't detect in that. So that's up to you. If you use 0, just slow your swing down. You can do it. I wouldn't use it in trashy areas. If you start getting some moderate trash, you may even actually go up to reactivity 2. That will help. I like to hunt always with my silencer at -1. That's just me. I like to hear every little crackle and pop. It gets really noisy though, so that's something you need to think about. If you can't stand a lot of noise, well, you probably wouldn't be using this program anyway. But anytime you change your reactivity, the silencer will automatically default to whatever that reactivity is set by the machine. So you'll have to turn it back to -1 every time you change the reactivity. If you want to hunt at -1. If you want the machine to set it itself, that's fine. But I always have to manually do it. And then audio response, I use 6. The max value there is 7. If you're in a lot of trash, you may want to turn that down because it amplifies everything, not just the good targets. So if you're amplifying some of the junk or whatnot in the ground, then you're gonna possibly miss a good target if you have that turned up too high. I use this on a really clean site. You can use 7. If you do use 7, you're not going to be able to use the sound to kind of gauge your depth. Pretty much you're going to have to rely on the horseshoe and to some extent with 6 as well, but 7 definitely you'll have to rely on the horseshoe to judge depth. But you will amplify those deep targets. So, I use 6. You'll want to play around with it and see what you think. Notching, I don't use anything for notching. And we're back to disc. And that's pretty much it on the settings. It's pretty basic, really. On the pumping method for ground balance, I highly recommend using pumping. You just go to pumping and start. Of course, you should know that if you're putting this in. If you're not using pumping, you're probably losing depth. The reason being, if you're using tracking, or even not ground balancing at all, which I doubt anybody's watching this would do that, but if you're not using the pumping method and you're using tracking, when you're using tracking, if you go over some iron, it will artificially elevate your ground balance, and it's going to kill your depth. So that's something to think about, especially if you're hunting in iron. I hunt in some difficult ground, and occasionally I'll have to reground balance a lot, or at least ever so often. It's not going to change so much usually that it's going to cause you significant problems. If it starts getting a little more chatty than usual, just reground balance. Just do the pumping method again. That's what I recommend, and to get the most depth out of this thing. Anyway, I hope this helps you. This is what I use. Like I say, I use the 12 kilohertz, or actually 11.8 on here. The reason I do that is because of the brass. It tends to hit better on brass as well as lead, which, the 18 kilohertz really will hit a little bit harder on lead. But I found the 12 just tends to get more depth. It's that good sweet spot of hitting good on the low conductors like the lead, but still, not sacrificing any depth or less depth anyway. So in the tones that I showed you earlier in disc, those are all based on 12 kilohertz. Those numbers that I showed you, those breakpoints, like a button, a Civil War button is going to come in about 52. So that number will change if you hunt in, say, 8 kilohertz. And like, I don't hunt in 8 kilohertz rarely, but you'll need to adjust that accordingly, or whatever frequency you decide that you want to put your program at. This is based on 12 kilohertz, so know that also going in. But anyway, hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. You can reach me at 256-284-2247. You can also email me at heathjones@treasuremtndetectors.com. I hope this helps, and see you soon.